I still remember the moment I finally found the courage to leave. The bruises on my arms were hidden under a long-sleeved blouse, and my makeup was carefully applied to conceal the mark on my cheek. I stood in our kitchen, Mark's kitchen, really, since nothing in that house had ever felt like mine, with my small suitcase by the door. He was at work. I'd planned it that way. 3 years of marriage, 3 years of walking on eggshells, of apologies that meant nothing, of promises that evaporated like morning dew. 3 years of, "I'm sorry, baby, it'll never happen again," followed inevitably by, "Why do you make me do this to you?" I was 26 when I left, though I felt decades older. I'd married young, swept off my feet by Mark's charm and confidence. He was 32 when we met, established in his career as a financial advisor, and I was finishing college with stars in my eyes and dreams of a marketing career. He'd seemed so stable, so put together. My parents had loved him immediately. "A real catch," my mother had said, squeezing my hand at our engagement party. If only they could have seen him 3 months after the wedding, when I came home late from work, and he threw my dinner against the wall, screaming that I was disrespecting him. Or 6 months in, when he accidentally pushed me so hard during an argument that my head hit the bathroom counter. Or on our second anniversary, when he locked me out of the house in the middle of winter because I'd laughed too loudly at a party. The day I left, I didn't call anyone. I just took what I could carry, used the emergency credit card I'd hidden inside an old tampon box, and checked into a motel on the edge of town. It wasn't until I was sitting on that thin, scratchy bedspread that I finally called my sister Lily. "Amber?" She sounded surprised. We hadn't talked much in recent months. Mark had a way of isolating me from everyone I loved. "Is everything okay?" "I left him," I said, and then the tears came, unstoppable. I left Mark. She was at the motel within 45 minutes, pulling me into a fierce hug, telling me I'd done the right thing, promising I wasn't alone. She helped me move into a small apartment the following week and sat with me at the police station when I finally filed for a restraining order. The photos of my injuries made her cry. "I had no idea," she kept saying. "Why didn't you tell us? How?" Could I explain the shame? The way abuse creeps in, normalizing itself day by day until you can't remember what healthy feels like anymore? My parents were shocked but supportive, though I could tell my father struggled with it. He and Mark had bonded over football games and fishing trips. "He seemed like such a stand-up guy," Dad kept saying, as if trying to reconcile two irreconcilable truths. The divorce took 8 months. Mark contested everything, dragging it out with petty demands and legal maneuvers. By the time it was finalized, I was 27 and determined to rebuild. I'd always been good at my job, but now I threw myself into it with renewed purpose. Marketing became my salvation, the place where my ideas mattered and my voice was heard. 2 years passed. I got promoted to marketing director. I moved to a better apartment. I started therapy. I went on a few dates, though nothing serious. I was healing, not healed, but I was proud of my progress. And then came the Sunday dinner that shattered everything. Monthly family dinners were a tradition in my family. Since the divorce, they'd become a ritual I actually looked forward to again. That particular Sunday, I arrived at my parents' house with a bottle of wine and a lightness I hadn't felt in years. My mother was in the kitchen, my father watching a golf tournament in the living room. Normal, comfortable. Then Lily arrived, beaming with a kind of nervous excitement. "I have news," she announced when we were all seated at the dinner table. She held out her left hand, and there it was, a diamond ring. "You're engaged!" my mother squealed, jumping up to hug her. "Who's the lucky man? When do we meet him?" Lily's smile wavered for just a moment, her eyes flicking to me, then back to Mom. "Actually, you've already met him." Something cold settled in my stomach. A premonition, maybe, or just the instinct of someone who's learned to sense danger before it arrives. It's Mark. The name hung in the air like smoke, acrid and suffocating. I felt as though I'd been doused in ice water. "Mark?" I whispered. My Mark? He's not yours anymore, Amber, Lily said, her voice taking on a defensive edge. And he's changed. He's been through anger management therapy. He's not the same person. I looked from her to my parents, waiting for someone, anyone, to acknowledge the insanity of what was happening. My father stared at his plate. My mother reached for Lily's hand to examine the ring more closely. "It's beautiful, honey," she said. "Are you serious right now?" My voice was rising despite my efforts to control it. "He abused me. He put me in the hospital. I showed you the pictures." Lily's face hardened. "That was between you and him. Your relationship was toxic for both of you. What we have is different. What you have is a lie," I said, standing up so abruptly my chair nearly toppled. "He hasn't changed. Men like that don't change. They just find new victims. That's enough." My father's voice cut through the tension. "Lily is an adult. She can make her own decisions. And Mark has paid for his mistakes." "Paid? How has he paid?" "The restraining order expired last year. The divorce settlement was a joke because he hid most of his assets. He never even admitted what he did." I could feel tears burning my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. My mother stood, placing her hands on the table in that placating way she had when she thought someone was being unreasonable. "Amber, honey, we know you went through something terrible, but people deserve second chances. Lily says he's different now, and we have to trust her judgment." I looked at my sister, this woman I'd thought I knew. How long have you been seeing him?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. "About 8 months. 8 months. While I was telling her about my therapy breakthroughs, while she was helping me pick out furniture for my new place, while she was assuring me that I deserved better, all that time she'd been sleeping with my abuser. I can't be here right now." I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. "Don't be dramatic," Lily called after me. "You're ruining a special moment because you can't move on." I turned back, hand on the doorknob. "When he hurts you, and he will hurt you, Lily, don't come to me." The drive home was a blur. I don't even remember the tears, though my swollen eyes the next morning told their own story. I called in sick to work, something I never did, and spent the day in a haze of betrayal and disbelief. My phone buzzed periodically with messages from my mother. "Please be happy for your sister. Mark asked about you. He wants to make amends." Family is everything, Amber. Family. The word that had once meant safety now felt like a threat. A week passed. I avoided their calls, focusing on work and my upcoming vacation. Our family had been planning a trip to Florida for months, a week at a beachfront rental to celebrate my parents' 35th anniversary. I'd already booked the time off work, already paid my share of the rental fees. Then came the text from Lily. "Just so you know, since you're not answering Mom's calls, Mark is coming to Florida with us. He's family now too." I called my mother immediately. "Is this true? You invited Mark on our family vacation?" Her sigh carried through the phone, heavy with martyrdom. "Amber, he's going to be your brother-in-law. You're going to have to learn to be in the same room with him eventually. He's the man who fractured my wrist when I tried to leave the house during an argument," I said, my voice deadly calm. "He's the man who told me he'd kill me if I ever left him. He's the man who made me afraid of my own shadow for 2 years, and you want me to share a beach house with him?" He's apologized for all that. To me, because I haven't received any apology. Another. "Sigh, this vacation is important to your father and me. We want the whole family there. I am not going if he's going," I said firmly. "That's my boundary, and I need you to respect it." "Well," my mother's voice took on the same defensive tone Lily's had. "Your sister already told us you might say that. She suggested we just give your ticket to Mark then, since you've already paid your share." The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. "So that's how it is. Don't be like that, Amber. We're trying to find solutions here. No, you're choosing him over me, over my safety. Over my trauma, over everything. I hear you loud and clear. I hung up before she could respond, hands shaking with anger and a grief so profound it felt physical. Then I made a decision. If they wanted to choose Mark, fine. But they'd do it without my money. The rental was in my name. I'd been the one to find it, to coordinate with the owner, to put down the deposit. My parents and Lily had sent me their shares of the fees, which I'd forwarded to the rental agency. But the reservation itself was mine. I called the agency immediately. "Hello, I need to cancel a reservation," I said when an agent answered. I provided my details, then held my breath. "You're still within the cancellation window, Ms. Mitchell, but there is a 15% fee." "That's fine. I'd lose some money, but not nearly as much as I'd lose in self-respect if I funded my abuser's beach vacation. Would you like the refund sent to your original payment method?" I hesitated for just a moment. "Yes, please." After ending the call, I sat with my decision. A part of me felt guilty. I just canceled my parents' anniversary trip, but a stronger part, the part that had finally stood up for herself after years of abuse, felt nothing but righteous satisfaction. I messaged my mother. "I've canceled the Florida reservation. The refund should hit your account in 3 to 5 business days. I'll be using my vacation time elsewhere." Then I turned off my phone, opened my laptop, and booked a solo trip to Cancun. The calls and messages poured in once I turned my phone back on. My mother was distraught, my father furious. Lily called me selfish, immature, vindictive. All the messages carried the same underlying message. I was overreacting. I was being dramatic. I needed to get over what Mark had done. Not one of them acknowledged that they'd invited my abuser on a family vacation. Not one questioned whether that might be insensitive, let alone deeply traumatizing. "Where are we supposed to go now?" my mother demanded when I finally answered one of her calls. "Everything will be booked by now." "That sounds like a problem for you and Mark to solve," I said calmly. "After all, he's so great at solutions, isn't he? So changed, so improved." "This isn't like you, Amber. You've never been spiteful." I laughed, a sound so hollow it barely seemed human. "No, I was always the peacekeeper, wasn't I? Always accommodating, always understanding, always putting everyone else's feelings above my own." Well, I learned that from Mark. I learned that keeping the peace was safer than standing up for myself. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Mom. My sister is engaged to the man who abused me for 3 years, and instead of protecting me, you're all embracing him. So, no, I don't feel particularly obligated to play nice anymore. The stunned silence on the other end of the line told me she'd never considered it from my perspective. Maybe she never would. "I have to go," I said. "I have a flight to pack for." Cancun was exactly what I needed. 7 days of sun, sand, and absolute freedom. No family drama, no painful history, no walking on eggshells. Just me, books I'd been meaning to read, and the kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. I posted exactly one photo on social media, a selfie of me on the beach, margarita in hand, sunset painting the sky behind me. The caption was simple. "Sometimes, you have to choose yourself." Lily texted almost immediately. "Real mature, Amber. While you're living it up in Mexico, we're all crammed into a crappy motel because we couldn't find anything decent last minute." I didn't respond. Instead, I ordered another margarita and watched the sun sink into the ocean, feeling something unlock in my chest. Something that had been tightly wound for far too long. 3 days into my solo vacation, a message arrived from my mother that changed everything. "Your father and I need to talk to you when you get back. It's about Mark, and we may need to borrow some money." I stared at the text for a long time, connecting dots that suddenly seemed obvious. Mark was a financial advisor. My parents had always been comfortable but not wealthy. Lily had always been a bit impulsive with money. When I returned home, tanned and more centered than I'd felt in years, I agreed to meet my parents at a coffee shop, neutral territory. They looked haggard, my father especially. The confident man who'd told me I needed to let Mark's abuse go was nowhere to be seen. "What happened?" I asked, after the awkward hellos were complete. My parents exchanged glances. "Mark took money from us," my father finally said, his voice rough with humiliation. "From all of us. Your sister gave him access to her accounts to help with wedding planning, and he emptied everything." The familiar cold feeling returned to my stomach. "How much?" "30,000 from your sister's savings, another 40 from our retirement fund." My father couldn't meet my eyes. "He told us about an investment opportunity, guaranteed returns. We thought—" "You thought he'd changed," I finished for him. My mother reached across the table, her fingers trembling slightly. "Amber, we're so sorry. We should have listened to you. We should have—" "Protected me?" I supplied. "Believed me? Not invited? My abuser to a family vacation? Which part are you sorry for exactly?" "All of it," she whispered. "We were wrong, so wrong." I sat back in my chair, studying them. There was genuine regret in their faces, but I couldn't help wondering how much of it was for me and how much was for their lost money. Would they be sitting here, apologizing, if Mark hadn't shown his true colors to them too? "Have you reported him to the police?" I asked. My father shook his head. "Lily doesn't want to. She says it would be too humiliating, and technically she gave him access to her accounts." "Of course she did," I said softly. "That's how it works. He makes you trust him, makes you think you're special, different. Then he takes everything." "We need your help, Amber," my mother said, finally getting to the real reason for this meeting. "Just until we can figure things out. Alone." I looked at these people who had raised me, who had failed to protect me, who had chosen my abuser over me, and I felt a strange mixture of love and detachment. "I can't," I said finally. "It's not about the money. I need space. From all of this. From you, from Lily, from everything to do with Mark. I need to protect myself now, since no one else will." "But we're family," my mother protested, tears welling in her eyes. "Family shouldn't hurt you," I said, standing and gathering my purse. "Family should be the one place you're safe. I haven't felt safe with any of you since the dinner where Lily announced her engagement." "What are you saying?" My father looked alarmed. "I'm saying I need time. I'm saying I'm finally putting myself first. I've spent too many years accommodating people who hurt me." I left them there in that coffee shop, my steps lighter than they had any right to be given the conversation we'd just had. But for the first time in my life, I'd set a boundary and held it, not from anger or spite, but from a place of self-preservation. In the months that followed, I kept my distance. I heard through mutual friends that Lily had moved back home, that she was devastated by Mark's betrayal. I felt for her. I knew better than anyone what that pain was like, but I maintained my boundary. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. I focused on my career, on my friendships, on building a life that felt genuinely mine. I started dating again, cautiously. I continued therapy, working through the tangled roots of why I'd stayed. With Mark as long as I had, why I'd been so willing to shrink myself for others' comfort. 6 months after the coffee shop conversation, a letter arrived from my mother. Not a text, not an email, but an actual handwritten letter. "Dear Amber," it began, "I've started and torn up this letter a dozen times. There's no easy way to say I failed you, but I did. We all did. Your father and I have been in counseling, trying to understand how we could have been so blind, how we could have chosen Mark over our own daughter. The only answer is that we weren't seeing clearly. We wanted to believe in happy endings, in redemption stories. We wanted to believe Mark had changed because it was easier than facing what he'd done to you, what we'd allowed to happen by not seeing the signs." She went on to detail the aftermath of Mark's theft, how they'd eventually gone to the police despite Lily's objections, how he was now facing charges for fraud, how Lily was in therapy too, working through her own guilt, and Shame. We don't expect your forgiveness, the letter concluded. We haven't earned it. But we want you to know that we're trying to be better, to understand. Your father asks about you every day. Lily keeps the article about your marketing award on her refrigerator. We miss you. We love you. And we're here when, if you're ever ready. I cried when I finished reading, tears that felt cleansing rather than painful. I didn't respond right away. I needed to sit with it, to be sure of what I wanted. 3 weeks later, I called my mother. The conversation was awkward, halting, but it was a start. I agreed to meet for lunch, just the two of us. Small steps, careful boundaries. I wasn't ready to forgive completely, wasn't sure I ever would be. But I was ready to see if there was something worth salvaging. The healing wasn't linear. There were setbacks, difficult conversations, moments when old wounds reopened. Lily and I had the hardest road. Her betrayal cut the deepest, and her shame made it difficult for her to face me. But slowly, carefully, we began to rebuild. Not the relationship we'd had before, but something new, something with more honesty and clearer boundaries. 2 years after I canceled that Florida vacation, we finally took a family trip together, my parents, Lily, and me. We went to a lake house in Michigan, a place with no history or baggage for any of us. It wasn't perfect. There were awkward silences, careful navigations around tender topics. But there were also moments of genuine connection, of shared laughter, of the comfort that only people who have known you your whole life can provide. On the last night, sitting on the dock with my sister as the sun set over the lake, Lily turned to me with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry for not believing you," she said, "for thinking I was different, special, for choosing him over you." I took her hand, feeling the weight of our shared history, the pain and the healing. "I know you are." "How did you do it?" She asked after a moment. "How did you find the strength to leave, to stand up for yourself against all of us?" I thought about it, about the long journey from that kitchen with my hidden suitcase to this dock, this moment of peace. I think I finally realized that I was worth protecting, that my safety mattered, that I deserved better. Lily squeezed my hand. "You were right about the family vacation too. Canceling it." "I know," I said, allowing myself a small smile. "That margarita on the beach was definitely better than sharing a house with Mark." She laughed, a sound that held both mirth and lingering sadness. "Much better." We sat in comfortable silence then, watching the light change on the water. I thought about the woman I'd been, so eager to please, so afraid of rocking the boat, so willing to make myself small to keep others comfortable. And I thought about the woman I'd become, someone who knew her worth, who set boundaries, who understood that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stand firm in your truth, even when it's painful. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. A new day would come tomorrow, and whatever it brought, I knew I would face it on my own terms.